Influenza is a highly contagious respiratory disease. It's viral, changes every season, and is a large cause of morbidity and mortality, both in the United States and in the world. In fact, there are more deaths attributable to influenza each year than to all other vaccine-preventable diseases combined. Influenza has been around for centuries. The issue is that it's constantly evolving, and so it makes a very difficult target for public health scientists to hone in on. Each year, the surface proteins on the virus of influenza change, and so the vaccine must be targeted for that year's influenza virus. The influenza virus that's most prevalent this year may or may not be the one most prevalent next year. Last year's flu season, the 2017-2018 flu season, was one of the worst we've had on recent record. The issue was that epidemiologists' best guess as to the flu strains that will be most prevalent and most virulent in the coming year were not the ones that were in fact circulating in the community. So each year the CDC and the FDA work with the World Health Organization in an attempt to assess what flu strains will be most problematic. And they put those flu strains, usually 3 or 4 different types, into the production of the flu virus vaccine. The problem is that in the time that it takes to produce that flu vaccine and disseminate it, there may or may not be change to influenza. And that's what happened last year. There was considerable change between the time it went into production and the time that it was disseminated to the public. So because of that change, it was only about 40% effective. In a good year, it's usually about twice that, 70 to 80% effective. It's important to get a flu shot each year because some protection is always better than no protection. Even in a year where the efficacy is down in, like last year in the 40% range, that's 40% less morbidity and mortality that we're going to see in the community by people getting their shots. Furthermore, even if the flu shot doesn't prevent you from getting the flu, it's very likely that if you get the flu and have had the shot, that it will lessen the severity and the duration of your symptoms. So it will make dealing with the flu a whole lot easier. There are a number of myths regarding influenza vaccine, probably the biggest one being that if you get the flu shot, that it'll give you influenza. That's a scientific impossibility. The flu shot is manufactured with killed flu virus. There's nothing effective in it, and there's no way that it can give you influenza. If you've gotten a flu shot and you've gotten influenza, then it's likely you may have been exposed to one of the strains not covered in the vaccine, or you were exposed before you got the immunity. It takes about 2 weeks after you get the shot, or maybe you just had a different type of respiratory illness like a common cold. There are a few other myths about influenza, one of them being that it's not that serious, that getting the flu is like getting the common cold. It's not at all. In fact, in an average year, there are about 36,000 deaths in the United States alone due to influenza. That's a major killer in our country. Across the world, you're talking about 250 to 500,000 dead from influenza in a non-epidemic year. And those deaths can occur at any age range, even amongst, healthy adults. Another myth, some people believe that it may be too late for them to get the vaccine, that their window of opportunity is past. So flu season in the United States starts about October, peaks December, January, February, and usually trails off in March, can run as late as May. If you haven't gotten your flu shot and you're in the midst of the flu season, December to January, you're still talking about several months of protection in that flu season for which the vaccine would be viable. So even if it's mid to late flu season, a vaccine is a good protection for you to get. If we were able to develop a universal flu vaccine, that would be a game changer for public health. As you might imagine, getting people to get their annual seasonal influenza vaccine is an uphill battle every year. And various research laboratories have initiatives underway to develop a universal flu vaccine, which, if successful, would only have to be given once and would be able to protect you, like the other vaccine-preventable illnesses, for lifelong coverage. Well, currently, the seasonal influenza vaccines target the surface proteins on the virus itself. A universal flu vaccine would actually target the core protein, and the core protein within the virus does not change year to year typically. So it makes for a very even-keeled, standard target that the vaccine could go after. The vaccine that Vaccitech, which is a UK company based out of Oxford University, is the one that we've seen the most promise. Right now they're in phase 2 clinical trials, a little less than 1,000 people, and that trial will wrap up in October of 2019. The bottom line is, if it's successful, this vaccine would be available for public use in about 5 to 7 years. And like I said, this would be a game changer for public health.